I welcome this opportunity to send you a heartfelt message from our women workers in the United States. We have been deeply impressed and inspired by the heroic efforts of women among our allies in this great fight for democracy. In our country also, as in yours, we are having an industrial revolution to meet war needs. Here, too, we are adopting the British slogan, "Nothing that women can do or learn to do should be allowed to absorb a man of military age." American women are good soldiers on the labor front and are winning real victories. They are not afraid to tackle any task in the key war industries. Large number of women are supplanting the work of men on production lines. But women are doing more. To a growing extent, they are replacing men inducted into military service or more skilled jobs. The situation was quite different before the war. During our so-called defense program, from the days of Dunkirk to the attack on Pearl Harbor, women were ready and eager to work in ammunition plants. But most of these plants did not want women. The management had a backlog of unemployed men to draw on. Also, many employers were skeptical as to women's mechanical ability. But immediately after our entrance into the conflict, opposition to women for war production began to collapse. Obviously, several million women would have to be recruited to meet President Roosevelt's blueprint for war materials, particularly with millions of men requiring for the armed forces. Also, resistance by organized labor to women in certain male dominions has given way to ready acceptance of women as co-workers in the plant and as co-members of the union. But men want assurance that women will not be used to undercut labor standards. Today, men, both management and labor, express amazement at women's skill and speed. Countless employers now boast that women are as good as men for many operations and even better at some jobs. President Roosevelt, after his swing around the country some weeks ago to inspect war production, praised women for their unflagging attention to their jobs. In our Women's Bureau investigation, we find women here, as with you, able and eager to do any kinds of work. They are expert at processes requiring painstaking and precision. They are as good as men at hard jobs like welding or operating electric cranes. Many women can run a drilling machine as well as an egg beater. Many take to riveting like a duck to water. We have in this country about 4 million women in war jobs, less than a fourth of all our women workers. But the number in war employment is steadily growing. Most dramatic has been the influx of women into the aircraft factories. Just before we entered the war, less than 4,000 women were in airplane production, chiefly in the fabric department. Today, about 135,000 women are helping to make planes of all types, from the Mustang and Lightning to the Flying Fortress and Liberators. Women are now doing more and more of the necessary operations for building aircraft. Thousands of women are at work in arsenals on all kinds of ammunition, bullets, shells, and bombs. Thousands of women are making war instruments and electrical equipment. Thousands are helping to produce tanks, jets, rubber rafts, life belts, and parachutes. Many women now work in ordnance plants, turning out guns and firearms, though only a few of our women were so employed a year ago. Women in these plants operate more different kinds of machines than any other industry. Last summer, women gained a foothold in a machine tool shop for the first time since the World War I. and women are on the increase in many of these plants. One factory, the largest manufacturer of lates in the United States, now reports almost 1,000 women employees. They constitute 2/5 of the force. Our shipyards have begun to take on women, more and more of them. The government navy yards have led the way. One is employing women for the first time in its 141 years of existence. The private yards also have begun to hire women for growing number of jobs. Of course, when the emergency is over, women will cease to engage in many of the present occupations. In the post-war period, there will be a scaling down of munition industries. We shall have to readjust large group of workers, both men and women. Many women will automatically withdraw from the labor force. But millions of our women will still have to earn their living and support dependents. Women by the thousands will still have to replace men, the men who come back maimed or fail to return from the combat. Special post-war plans must be made to meet the needs of women who, as unknown heroes of the labor front, have made their contributions and sacrifices too for victory and democracy. It is a real privilege to greet you and tell you in this way about changing patterns for women workers in the United States. The women in your country and ours are drawn closer together by our common cause. The situation for American women does not parallel that of women who have endured and conquered the hardships during 3 years of hard warfare, brought to their very homes and workplaces. But even a year of war has led to a social revolution here. The changes, though gradual, are quite apparent. The trends of women's employment have been considerably altered. The attitudes of women as workers and the attitudes of employers towards a feminine workforce have been revamped. Many college graduates and girls from well-to-do homes turn willingly to work on the industrial front because they feel they take a more vital part in war when they work on bombs, tanks, ships, and planes. Some girls are eager to help make planes for their brothers, husbands, or sweethearts to fly, and the wages are usually good in such plants. A young college woman doing research work for a firm in a big industrial center the other day told all her girlfriends are in the war production. Most of them, she said, were on the swing shift from 3 to 11 p.m. Others worked on the graveyard shift through the night, and they liked their jobs. This situation can be duplicated in all parts of the country. Service in war plant, as in the armed forces, is proving a great socializing influence. In the Women's Bureau, we had occasion to check on the previous occupational experience of women in a large aircraft engine plant. Here's the list of the women's former jobs: hotel keepers, domestic workers, housewives, stenographers, sales girls, saxophone player, blues singers, cashier, candy store work, garment and jewelry factory workers, beauty operators, debutantes, waitresses, school teachers, college graduates in chemistry and physics, commercial artists, and so on. All those women, with very different background, were getting new and wholesome ideas from their contacts with women in other walks of life from their own. Other encouraging trends has been a breakdown in the discrimination against certain types of workers. Of course, we're not reached the millennium. Prejudices still linger in various quarters, but progress is being made. Married women who during our years of depressions were discriminated against by many employers are now in great demand. Older women in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s, who a year ago were unable to secure any kind of a job, are at last finding themselves employable to an increasing degree. Negro women workers formerly barred from many occupational fields are beginning to have unusual opportunities open up to them. Such trends have been spurred by an executive order of President Roosevelt. This prohibits applicants for war jobs from being discriminated against on account of race, creed, color, or national origin. In the Women's Bureau we find that the national emergency and the global war have widened the horizon of American women. They have a greater pride as workers. They have a new feeling of unity. They have a much stronger sense of responsibility as citizens. Greetings to working women in the Allied nations. The women of the United States work with you in the spirit of the times. The government of the United States, partaking of the spirit, believes that women should have the same wage rates as men. Such policies help protect our soldiers in a battle whose jobs are being taken over by women. Soldiers feel that wage structure will be preserved for their return from battle. Working women, and many of them today, feel that the justice is truly the goal of wage adjustments. The Women's Bureau, U.S. Department of Labor, pioneered in the effort to establish this principle. Early this fall, the Bureau consulted with our present National War Labor Board in its decision in 3 wage cases. In each case, the equal pay principle was written into the decision. The case of widest scope covered 95 plants of General Motors Corporation. This corporation employs some 300,000 men and women on war production. Before the war, it was one of the giants of the automobile industry. But a climax in the equal pay for women movement came late in November. Then the National War Labor Board issued a general order on women's wage rates. This allows an employer to equalize women's wage rates with those of men without prior board approval. Many of the millions of women in the war and civilian industries are likely to be affected by the order. From such a peak of recognition, we can describe a circle showing the long struggle for equal wage rates. Let us look back to World War I. The National War Labor Board at that time applied the principle in more than 50 cases. When the Women's Bureau was first set up by Congress in 1918, one of its chief aims was to promote the equal pay policy for women. The Bureau advocated that wages be based on occupation and not on sex. The Bureau has stressed the standards ever since. One of the highlights of the Women's Bureau's struggles for working women's welfare was reflected in the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. This is our wage hour law designed to set a floor to wages. In this law, the equal pay principle as related to minimum wage rate in interstate industries was established. Our entrance into the war and the need for women to take men's jobs brought sharply into focus the question of equal pay. On January 1942, the War, Navy, and Labor Departments recommended that wage rates for women should be the same as for men, including the entrance rate. Organized labor has taken steps to make the principle a reality. Already, a number of union agreements have an equal pay clause. Notably also is the stand taken a few months ago by the President of the National Association of Manufacturers in endorsing equal pay for women. He declared there is little difference between men and women as regarding their satisfactory performance in industry. In mid-October, the War Manpower Commission, in consulting with the Women's Bureau, urged the principle of equal pay, and that briefly traces the circle back to the rulings of the present War Labor Board which began our discussion. It may interest you to know that many of our aircraft plants pay women the same beginning rates as men. Most ammunition plants and certain machine tool companies, on the other hand, pay women less than men. Apparently, women are going into the shipyards on an equal wage basis with men. As you know, proper job analysis is the bedrock for establishing equal wage rates. Such an analysis provides a real foundation for comparing skill, performance, and output on the job. The Women's Bureau has analyzed occupations for women in the machine tool, aircraft, ammunition for small arms, and for artillery war instruments, firearms, and cannon industries. We are now studying jobs in the shipbuilding. These studies are guideposts for proper planning in hiring women. They give employers a knowledge of how extensively women may be utilized on war jobs and what rate of pay should prevail. The working women of the United States, I'm sure, join me in wishing you further success in your effort to establish equal wage rates. We are continuing the equal pay campaign here until we win a complete victory.